making video today because I have a lot of soap to make. So, anyways, I made an ebook and I've been selling that ebook online, and I've had a lot of people buying it and a lot of people sending me the pictures of their success and everything. And one lady that I've been working with, she's had a few questions and she thought she had ruined her soap and thought it was too dry. And anyways, she was sending me pictures and we had a lot of conversations. And she's doing everything right. I had to guide her through. And anyway, she sent me her pictures of her final soap and they were beautiful. And her ingredients were just so awesome on top of my base that I wanted to order them and try them out. So I ordered her soap. And Brooklyn Lower, all natural skincare products, and the name of her is Mommy Bee Soaps, and she's on Etsy. And she gave me 2 cards, and I ordered the Summer Bliss, which is aloe vera, lemongrass, and calendula. And oh my gosh, it just smells amazing. And they came in these beautiful little bags. I got 2 of the Summer Bliss. And then I did get her Java House coffee, goat's milk, shea butter. But I think this blend is different than mine. And she has tallow in it. So, but it's still hot process. And she just it changed one thing up. And that was tallow. And she put coffee butter in here. And it smells really good. I can't wait to use these soaps. Like I use my own soaps. But it's really fun to find somebody else who's making soaps like me, because I'm very fussy. I don't want fragrance oils in them, only essential oils and as natural as can be. And I really prefer hot processed soap. I don't know why. I don't really like cold processed soap. I mean, it's okay, but for the most part, I just love hot processed soap for some reason. But these come wrapped, and yeah, they're beautiful soaps, just beautiful. But anyways, today I'm going to be making lavender, just plain wild lavender soap, and then I'm going to be making my Oklahoma rose soap. And we'll get with it. Okay, so I've got 27 ounces of coconut oil already in here. And this, I'm going to start with the rose. And I'm going to go ahead and tear this out. And take my spoon out. Okay, so I tear it out to 0. And then we're going to start adding in our other oils. Now, I just use my base on all my soaps. So it doesn't really, I've changed up a few soaps, but for the most part, I just use the same base. I love it, and I can change, the essential oils and the scents and everything. But I read it from here, which I ran through the soapcalculator.com's calculator. And so for olive oil, I'm going to do 32 ounces of olive oil. Now, I am going to link my ebook for my soap making recipe and everything else, like how I do it, everything, down in the description box. And I'm also going to link the Mama Bee Soaps, her Etsy shop down there too. So if you want to visit her shop and support her. Oh, I went over. My scale was like really, really slow to catch up. I'm at 333. My goodness. So I'll just put some back in. I hate when I do this. I like it when I'm very precise. And with soap making, you do have to be pretty precise because that chemical reaction will not work if it's not precise. Almost there. One more. I guess each teaspoon is 2. Okay. I'm right at 32 on the dot. Now, I'm going to do 2 ounces of castor oil. I'm going to tear it back out. Oh, my scale is kind of sluggish. I've had this scale for like 8 years. And I bought new ones. I have 3 brand new ones in the box, and I don't like them. I have yet to find one that I like as much as this one. It's because of the way it's shaped. Okay, castor oil. And that should be it for our oils. We have olive oil, coconut oil, and castor oil. Now we need to add our shea butter. So I'll tear it back out. And I'm going to grab my shea butter. I think I'm going to use the white. I have yellow. The shea butter comes in both like white and yellow. I love the yellow, but it can definitely change the color of your soap. So you got to keep that in mind. I'm not too fussy about the color of my soaps. I mean, I'm going to use alkanet root to make this kind of a pinkish purple color, and for health benefits too. But I'm not too worried about the colors of my soap. Like, you know, I mean, I color them and everything, but I don't think it matters too much in the end result. But if I have white, I'll use it. Okay, so I always wrap this in saran wrap, and it's very hard to unwrap without getting all the little pieces of saran wrap everywhere. But I'm sure it's the only best way for them to do it. And I like to keep it in the saran wrap because it does keep it moisture. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off some hunks and throw them in. Let's see. I teared that. Okay. How many ounces of shea butter was it? I should know. I feel like I don't know. 4 ounces. Okay. Usually I cut off right. I know what 4 is, but I haven't been making soap lately. 4.3. I'm going to take just a teeny off of that. Okay. What do we have? 4 on the dot. All right, we'll throw these back in here for future use, which we'll be using pretty quick. I'm just going to stick my knife in there for right now and stick this into here. I just got my new stainless steel table, and oh my gosh, I love it. This is the island. I have a bigger stainless steel over there on this side, but this is just a little teeny tiny island, but I just love it. It's been very handy, and it has a shelf underneath for me to do all this. So anyways, I'm going to warm these oils up, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so the oils are heating, and now I'm going to mix the goat milk and water together. And my goat milk is always frozen. That way you don't burn it with the lye. And I run it under, I keep it right, directly in the freezer, and then run it under some water and get it thawed out enough I can crack it open. And I'm going to tear out the scale real quick. And then get my goat milk measured out. And then I'm going to be adding my distilled water. And I think this is 24.7 ounces total. So like on your recipes, if you're wanting to use goat milk and it's 27 ounces of water and you want to use 7 ounces of goat milk, then you're going to use 20 ounces of water and 7 ounces of goat milk. You just reduce it. Just reduce however much goat milk you use. But yeah, it's like I said, my scale is really sluggish. I don't know what's going on with it. Maybe it needs a new battery. Hopefully that's it. Like, takes a minute to catch up. But I'm going to put that in the sink and let it sit for a minute and go ahead and do the next one. here I'm going to clean up real good, and then I'm going to move to measuring out the lye. So I want to make sure that everything on the table and the scale is very dry, because the only thing that activates the lye is liquid. So if a little lye crystal falls onto the scale or the table or anything and it's wet, it'll start activating, where it'll be a lot easier if I just pick it up quickly with a wet paper towel instead of it sitting there and like burning the scale or something. But anyways, I'm going to tear out the scale. Always use glass to measure your lye out. I mean, you probably can use plastic, but it would have to be like chemical rated or whatever. So you might experiment, and I've just always used the same glass jar for 8 years now. So anyways, and it like etches the side of the glass. It eats through the glass, but it hasn't like damaged the integrity of the glass. And it does do that to crock pots eventually. And I've had a few crock pots actually get weak and crack from the lye. But overall, it's not too bad. And you definitely never want to use aluminum with any kind of lye. Always make sure it's stainless steel. And I finally have gloves now that they're back in stock and everything. I had to measure lye out for months without gloves because there were none to be found. But it's definitely best to have gloves because you will get lye on your hands eventually. And it's not horrible. I mean, it'll burn, but it's like more annoying. It's like, what is burning on my skin? And then vinegar always stops any kind of burning and stops the lye immediately. So, okay, now this recipe I think is calling for 9.5 ounces of lye. So I'm going to measure that out. And being really, really careful, because those lye crystals are like have static electricity and then just pop and go everywhere. And I have 2 Chihuahua puppies that run around on the ground all the time. I definitely don't want them licking one up or stepping on one or anything. So I try to be really careful with it. Now, I'm going to take you over here real quick to the sink, to both the goat milk waters, and I'll show you. You always pour lye into your liquid mixture. You never pour the liquid into lye. So you wouldn't want to put the lye in a dry bucket and then pour the water into it because it can splash right up into your face. I mean, it's just so much safer to do it this way. And I think it can even have like a chemical reaction done the other way, like it can really foam up or something. And a lot of people wear masks and goggles and everything, but my water is so cold that it really stops having fumes. I've never had to wear a mask, or I don't have any fumes. It doesn't bother me at all. But all right, we're going to go back over and I will just measure another one. Now here I'm at the end of, I just have like maybe an ounce or a half an ounce of lye left in the container. And I love a brand new container of lye. It's very nice. And I just use lye from the grocery store, like Walmart or the hardware store or something. As long as it says 100% lye, it can be used. You don't have to order special soap making lye for bar soap. For liquid soap, you have to have a different type of lye, but just your regular lye that unclogs drains works to make soap. It's the same exact lye. So I just buy it at Walmart or Ace Hardware. We have a little lumber store called Fox, so I buy it there too. Anyways, I'm opening a new one. You just have to be really careful when you're opening up new lye and using utensils and everything. You want to make sure, I always put them on one side of the sink that I'm going to wash right away. And you don't want them sitting around or any lye water sitting around or anything like that. But I'll go ahead and get this measured out and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so here I want the other bucket's been sitting a while, and it's actually already started making soap. It's already, because of the fat in the goat's milk. So that's why when I stir it, you can see there's chunks and stuff in it. That's not going to hurt anything. It's trying to go to trace is what it's doing, the fat in the lye on top. But when I mix it and stick blend it, it'll be fine. Now here I'm just rinsing out my lye container real quick. And we will take these two. I used to measure the temperature. In cold process, you need to, be within 30 degrees of your hot oils and your lye mixture. But with hot process, it doesn't matter. So I just go ahead and put the hot lye into the hot oils. And I try to keep everything as cool as possible. Like, I don't want my oils to be too hot. And here lately, I've had a lot of people ask me about temperature. And I don't take temperatures. They're like, well, do I need to keep the crock pot on medium or high? And that's a variable. It depends on your crock pot. Some crock pots, I have crock pots that, like, I have, a dozen crock pots, and they all heat differently. So I can't really tell you that you're just going to have to, you can take temperatures and you want everything around 180 to 200. You definitely don't want to get up to 12 to 15 and get too hot, because then your soap cooks too fast and it can be a little dry and brittly. But other than that, I don't really pay attention to temperatures anymore. And it's kind of hard when you're teaching someone, they don't know what to look for. But yeah, it's just, it's definitely a science, but it's not rocket science. Here I'm adding the lye water to the lye and goat milk water to the hot oil. And when I say hot, it's warm. It's, like I said, it's probably around 180. And then I'll go ahead and add the other one. And you should start blending as quick as possible, but it can sit for a few minutes. So you have time to do 2 or 3 pots of soap is fine. And I have both the crock pots on low right now. And right after the cook, which I'll show you, I usually turn my crock pots off. But like I said, that's, even the weather outside has a big influence on your soap making. So you just kind of have to get a feel for how your soap, what phase it's in and what it looks like. So now I'm going to stick blend. I bought this stick blender on Amazon. I'm going to keep my gloves on because, actually, I think I take my gloves off, put them back on. I don't remember, but I read on that stick blender that it had that Proposition 65 California may cause cancer warning on it. So there's something in the plastic that they use. It's like, oh, lovely. That's nice. I don't know. I don't know if I should be worried about that or not. I'm sure we touch plenty of chemicals. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up and cut some of this out, but I'll show you how I blend it to about light trace. So, and when I'm making 2 pots of soap like this and they both don't have anything go in it trace, I can move my stick blender from one to the other and not worry about washing it off or cleaning, getting a new stick blender or anything. And they're both, the bases are the same, so it's not going to matter. But you want to stick blend them till they're to trace, a light trace. Light trace is where you can drip some of the soap on top and it kind of sits, or it's kind of like a real light pudding. Now here I'm going to put in a little bit of kaolin clay. I'm not going to use as much kaolin clay as I use in my normal soap recipes because I'm going to be putting alkanet root in, both of them actually. So I'm just doing a little less because alkanet root is, kaolin clay will kind of suck the moisture out of your soap, and so will alkanet root. So you want to do, just do a little less. And I blend this in real good. And trace, a lot of my people ask me, students and stuff ask me if, exactly how long do I blend it? Well, there is no set time because, like I said, every soap is different, and it's not going to accelerate to trace, unless there's heat. And the hotter that your oils are in your lye water, you didn't let it cool or whatever, it can come to trace super, super fast. And that's why when you're cold processing, making soap, cold process, you want to really, keep everything as cool as possible so you can keep everything really fluid in light trace while you pour it. Hot process doesn't matter so much, but in fact you want it to come to trace as quick as possible so you can make soap and get out of there. But there is no set time. You just have to blend it till it makes like a thick pudding, and then you let it sit, and then it's going to go through its phases to medium trace to hard trace. And when it goes to hard trace, then it'll go to a gel phase. And that some soaps will skip gel phase, and I have a lot of my students go, "Oh, my soap never went to a gel." Well, that's okay too. That's just I love when it doesn't gel and it just goes straight to soap, but most of the time it always goes to a gel phase. And it's not true that you have to cook. It has to go to gel phase. It might have done it and you didn't even really notice it. Okay, so while the soap is going from trace to gel and then ready for me to stick blend it again, I'm going to line my molds. And I line my molds with freezer paper. And that Reynolds freezer paper that you buy, at the grocery store. And I made a template years ago. It's probably like 8 years old. And that's my template that I just mark it out and then cut, and it fits right down in my wooden boxes that I made for my soap mold. And in my ebook, I have all that stuff in there, like my molds and how I make them and everything, and all that kind of stuff. More detail on it anyways. But I'm going to go ahead and line both my boxes real quick. Now while I'm doing this, I guess I can talk a little bit about molds. You definitely want to line a wooden mold because the soap will stick to the wood. And I found, parchment paper will work, but I found freezer paper works excellent. And you need to use not the shiny side of the freezer paper. You want to use the powdery side or the dry side. And to me, it pulls right off. But I pull my soap out like 12 hours later, like it's in the, it sets for 12 hours. I pull my soap out and I pull my paper off right then. If you let your soap sit longer than like 48 hours, you will have trouble pulling the paper off. So the quicker you can pull the paper off of it, and the soap is hard, the easier it is to do. Found that many times the hard way. So, but if you use a silicone mold, I have yet to find a silicone mold that I like and that's big enough for me. So this mold is for a 5-pound batch, and that makes me about 18 bars, I think. And they're like 3x4 bar size bars, and 3 and something, because I made this out of 1x4s. So and I don't have it where it's got wing nuts where you can take it apart. That would be handy, and I would have liked to have that in the beginning, but I didn't. So I just made these. They're just wooden boxes, but I have no trouble getting my soap out. If you mold it, if you line it really good, you won't have any trouble at all. It just pops right out. If you miss cutting it and a big blob of soap gets stuck to your wood on one corner, you might have a little trouble pulling it out, but it'll pop out eventually. So, and the longer the soap sits in the mold, the more it shrinks. But like I said, I really like to take my soap out right at 12 hours. Like I usually make soap in the evening, and the next morning I unmold it. Or if you make it in the morning, you can unmold it that evening. But I usually do it I don't know, I just make soap at night. I don't know why I always have. But yeah, and I always tape my sides down. If you don't, you can have a lot of wrinkles in your soap, from the paper will get wrinkly or something. So I just use masking tape. It's just easier and it's out of your way. And I only have 3 molds, so that's all I can make is 3 pots. I need to make more molds. I could make more at one time, but usually I just do like 3 pots a day is like plenty of soap for what I sell. But yeah, those are my molds, and I do love them. I absolutely love the way my soap looks. I like the size. I like everything about it. And then I made my own cutter too, and you'll see that later. But yep, that's it. And then I'm going to get, now that I've done that, I'm going to get everything ready to make the soap. Because once the soap is cooked, you'll want to go ahead and get your alkanet, your colorant, whatever you're using. You want to get that in there pretty quick. And because your soap it starts cooling down, and you don't want to mold it when it's too cool. And there's kind of a sweet spot in there because, oh my gosh, if you put your essential oils in when it's too hot, they have a flash point, and then you won't have any scent. So, you kind of, I don't own a thermometer. Like I did at one time, but I just go by, I know when I can put my essential oils in. And every essential oil is different. Some can take more heat than others, so you kind of learn that too, You definitely want to have everything ready, and just everything ready sitting on go for when your soap is finished. You can start getting, everything incorporated in it, and then get it molded as quick as possible. If, I've been literally running around, where's my lavender oil? Oh my gosh, I can't find it. My soap is setting up. I'm just freaking out. You can always turn the crock pot back on and warm, keep it warm, and that will kind of keep it softer. And you can also add a little bit of like a sugar syrup or something, but that can change the color of your soap. It doesn't after the cook as much, but it still can. And you can add a little bit of honey or yogurt or something like that, and it'll like really make it, it'll soften it up. But I don't really like to add anything to my soap, except for what I have in the ingredients. So I try not to do that. Now, I moved you over here so we can look, and we're definitely both the soaps gelled on me. So this is great. You can see, and my soap is super hot, but it's like 100 degrees outside. It's probably, I have the air on, but where I'm making soap, it's probably 78, maybe 80 in here. It doesn't feel hot to me, but it's definitely warmer than it would be in the winter. And that's what makes such a big difference when you're making soap. The temperature outside, temperature of your house, so many variables. But it doesn't matter. I'm going to stick blend this back to where it, and this, when your soap is hot and you're stick blending it, it has to come back together. When it's in that gel phase, it has to come back together. And when it does, this is where it can volcano on you. And like if you were to stick blend it really good and then walk away, you'll come back and have soap all over down the counter, all over the floor. And I've done that. Oh my gosh, what a mess. And that actually was my cranberry orange, and I've never made that again. But anything with a lot of heat and sugar and stuff will definitely make your soap volcano. But these two are going to volcano on me because they're they're so hot. Even though I shut my crock pots off, I don't know. It's just a really hot day. So, anyways, I'll just work with them. This part does not take long at all. And if I were to just kind of give a guesstimate on how long it took to go from trace to gel, it was just long enough for me to get stuff together. So maybe 20 minutes at the most. And then, stick blending it back together maybe takes 10 minutes, So, usually I can have soap made in an hour and a half at the most from start to finish. But, this one really, really gelled. It was really, I should have shut my crock pots off way sooner. I should have just heated the oils, probably just shut everything off because it's so hot. And that would have helped. But, But yeah, I'll just keep working with them, and it's never, I literally had a student one time, they were from another state, they came down and had a class, and he literally had a pot of soap go to gel, and he was trying to get it back together, and he didn't go far enough, and he thought he ruined his soap, so he just threw it all out. That's never the case. You will always be able to get your soap back, and if you've measured everything out right, scientifically right, like everything is precise, then there's no reason it won't come back together. So, yeah, I'll bring you right back and show you when it's, actually gone through its process and made soap. Oh, real quick before I go back to blending, you can see right there, that's starting to volcano. You can watch it. It's like, you can watch it like kind of erupt. But you can always stir it down, kind of like a pot of noodles that's boiling. They're going to boil over. As soon as you stir it, it stirs down. Well, you can stir your soap down. That's why it's important not to leave your soap while, you're making soap. You really don't want to leave it. You want to be in the same room with it. But as soon as it starts to come up like that, stirs down really fast. So, and it won't volcano on its own in gel phase. It only does that basically when you've really got it hot and you've been stirring it a lot. Either with a stick blender or even stirring it with your spoon. But it has to be like really fluffed. And I notice it's worse when you stick blend it. But stick blending is like the only way to go. So, all right, we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we'll stop right here real quick and I'll show you how much thicker it is after about 4 or 5 minutes of stick blending it. See, it's not quite completely done. Still has a little bit more incorporating to do to become completely cooked all the way through, but it's getting there. It just needs a few more minutes. I'm just kind of standing here and I'm watching it, and it's kind of trying to volcano again, which when it does volcano a little bit, it like actually is going through its process and it incorporates itself. Like you don't have to blend it quite as much. So I stirred it down. And you can see the difference in the one that I blended a lot, and the other one I hadn't blended as much yet. I'll just, when it gets to this point, I'll concentrate on one more than the other, and then I have plenty of time to move over to the other one and work with it. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera a little bit so you can see better. You can really see how thick it's getting now. It is really, really starting to thicken up and kind of have like a mashed potato kind of consistency. And it still has some lye. If you ever hear the term lye heavy soap, that's where the soap still has a little lye that needs to be cooked out of it. And at this point, until it turns glossy, it is not considered completely cooked all the way through. So now I'm going to start on the other one. The other one's close enough and it doesn't need any attention. It is not going to volcano now. It's gone through all that craziness and it's done. So it's not completely shiny and made soap, completely. But it's done needing my attention anyway. So now I'm going to move over to the other one and do the same process over here. And it's probably going to... Now, it's had a little time to cool down, so it might not be as bad as wanting to volcano. But I try not to over stick blend my soap if I can kind of like incorporate it with a spoon. So I kind of go back and forth. And also, for some reason, this stick blender seems to spit hot soap at me. Even if I keep it stuck down, it is the most powerful blender I've ever had. This is like crazy. I just got it on Amazon. That's my other one burned up. But now you can see how thick this is. And this is now getting that kind of shiny look. And it's really hot. So it's a lot thinner and won't have quite as much shininess to it. But it's done. I would consider that done. And I let it cool a little bit before I start adding all my stuff, but not long. I mean, soap starts cooling pretty quick. So I'm just going to mix this a little bit more, and you can see all the oils coming out of, it's all coming back, mixing in real good. And there it's trying to do a little volcanoing right there. You just see like a weird color white spot start in the middle of the soap, and then it just starts bubbling from underneath, and it's like a volcano coming up. It's really cool. I would have loved to have done, I didn't make soap when my kids were little, but my boys were always had their science projects and everything, and we did a lot of cool ones, but I would have loved to have done soap making for their science project. That would have been so cool. But at that time I didn't know about it. Anyways, I think I feel at this point that it's done enough. I can just start using my spoon. And this one, you can really tell now. It's definitely mashed potato-like, and I can see the shininess to it. So that's good and done. And then the other one, you can tell, is just starting to do a little volcano thing right there. So it's still in its weird stage where it's trying to do all that stuff. See, when you make hot presses soap, there's just certain things you look for in making your soap to get real comfortable at making it and know that it's going through all its phases that it needs to go through. And that's kind of hard to teach. The only way you've got to get in there and just start making it. I know when I first started making soap, I poured over YouTube videos and stuff, and watched and took stuff from some people and others, and some people scared me half to death, some people made me feel confident. It just, you don't know. But it's really not hard, and you really can't screw up your soap as long as you have those all the recipe right and all the calculations and everything done right, and you've gone through a soap calculator, and the lye and the oils and the water and everything are correct. There is nothing that can go wrong. Like your soap is, there are things like it can rise. Like if you get into things making soap with alcohol or sugars and things like that, and you start branching out, then that's more, advanced stuff, I guess. And then you can have some other things happen. But it can freeze up, or like I said, rice or whatever. But all those things are very kind of fixable. There's like always little things you can do to get around all that and everything. But just these basic recipes are super easy. If you're wanting to make soap for your family and you want to make a 5-pound mold, that's a lot of soap. And it's quick and easy, and you have this wonderful soap that's natural. And your kids are using natural soap and everything. It's great. So I would suggest everybody make soap for their family. And it's not cheap to make soap. It's not expensive, but if you were to go buy these bars from somebody, of course you're going to pay for their time and their packaging and all that and everything. And then if they sell it online, then they have fees and everything. So there's a lot of upcharge to it. But each pot of soap runs roughly, depends on where you get your stuff, but a 5-pound pot, between $25 and $30. So, you can make for like $2 or $3 a bar, you can make your soap. And, which is not cheap, because you can go to Walmart and buy chemical laden soap, for 97 cents a bar. And, but I don't look at it that way. I love making natural stuff, and I think if you wanted to get real thrifty, you could do better, and make it out of tallow and probably process your own fat and everything and all that, but I don't do that. Okay, so here they're both done, and I'm going to go ahead and add the alkanet root powder. And on the rose soap, I'm going to add alkanet and a little tiny bit of grape seed extract powder. It's kind of like, it gives it a little bit more of a purpley color. the alkanet powder is a purplish gray. It has a real gray tint to it. It's very lavender looking. I love it. But in the lavender, that's all. It just gets the alkanet. And what's weird about the alkanet powder too is you can't say, oh, for a 5-pound pot you have to use 2 teaspoons, or because wherever you order your alkanet root powder, it's going to be different. So, you know, I mean, some are lighter than others, and you're just going to have to do it to what you think the color is. And I will say this, when it morphs, it changes colors. So once you've put it in and you're stirring it in, it starts, it's like, I don't know, it changes, it transforms right before your eyes. Like you think, oh my gosh, this is never going to get incorporated in here, and it's like streaky and it's doing weird stuff. And then all of a sudden, it just smooths out. And it starts like incorporating really good, and the color starts, and spirulina does that too. It's like, it starts out and it's kind of like of a pea green, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and greener. It's like really weird. So, I always gotten my alkanet root powder like wet, and I think I'm doing that with the grapeseed extract, but I didn't have luck doing that. Like some things, if you get it wet with it, just a teeny bit of water or oil, it mixes in better. But I found out when I did this that it didn't help. It was still, so you can go ahead and do the grape seed extract directly in powder form, and it mixes in just fine. But I had a big old chunk in there. I couldn't get it out. But yeah, you can kind of see over on the left on the lavender side, it's already turning really a pretty color, purplish gray. And you really won't know if you want it darker. You know, I would wait a good 2 or 3 minutes after stirring to see what it's going to look like before you add more. So you don't want to start adding more like right away. Like, oh, this isn't the color, you know, just kind of wait, because it's going to change a little bit. And I'm just going to keep messing with colors, and I think I added a little bit of alkanet root powder to the, so the rose is on your right, my left, and then the lavender is going to be on your left. That's the lavender. And then, like I said about flash points with essential oils, these are pretty hot. So I'm going to, after I colored them, I'm just going to let them sit for a little bit. Maybe like only 5 minutes. And I'm going to stir them quite often, because every time you stir them, that, you know, you bring the hot soap up, because you just let the pot sit there hot, it stays pretty hot. But if you stir it, it will really, really cool it down. So I come over and stir them quite often. But I'm going to bring you over here and show you what I do next. I put rose petals in the bottom of my mold, and then I put lavender buds in the bottom of my mold. So that way I have both lavender on top and bottom, and then I have rose on top and bottom. And the hot soap doesn't seem to change either one of the petals colors or do anything, you know, it just works really well. But almost getting ready to add the essential oils and then mold them. So we'll be right back. Okay, so now I've moved the crock pot over here, and I'm getting ready to add the lavender oil. And the amount, usually in the soap calculator, it'll tell you how many ounces of essential oils that you need to add. You know, the ratio, when you plug it all in, it's going to come up and tell you, you know, how much. I don't go by that at all. I do just the way I want it to. For my 5-pound mold, I'd say I probably use half to 3/4 of an ounce of lavender oil, and I experimented is how I did it until I got the smell that I like. I don't want it super overpowering, and I found that on the soap calculator, their calculations, it's too overpowering for me. Now I just spoon it into the mold and just plop it in, plop it in, plop it in. And this is going to create a lot. There's no other way of doing it. You can't really hold it up and scrape it in. I mean, it's just the best way to do it. But it's going to create a lot of air pockets. So I'm going to pick up this mold and take it to the floor and tap it quite a bit on the floor to release any air pockets, you know, and tamp the soap down. I probably do like maybe 6 or 7 good tamps on the concrete floor. I used to be able to do it on a counter that I had that was really sturdy, but I don't really have anything like that now. Everything's my stainless steel tables, and they wouldn't be good for that. They bounce too much. So you got to find something, and you really need to do this because you will have big air pockets if you do not do that. So, yeah. And then I save all the soap scraps when they dry in my crock pots, and then run them through a food processor and use them for laundry soap or anything. You can throw it in a, you know, like a bottle and make like a, you know, fill it full of water, and then you can use it for shampoo for the dogs or whatever, you know. It's just a great soap. So, now I'm adding my lavender buds on top, and the soap sat for just like 2 seconds while I walked away, and so they will not stick to the top of the soap because the soap immediately starts to dry. So I take a fork and just kind of push them down and twirl them around a little bit to stick. A lot of people have this trouble with their soap. They'll put stuff on the top and they don't realize that it's not sticking, you know, but they do stick really good if you just kind of just scratch them around a little bit with the fork and make them stick. So, and that's all I do for the top. And then I kind of just push up the sides because when I've tamped it down, it made it really flat. And yeah, I'm going to go tamp it real quick and get on to the rows. Well, I guess I never got any video footage of me doing the rows, but this is the next morning. And this is me unmolding the lavender soap. And yeah, I'll show you here how it just pops right out. It's like amazing. It's so easy. Just poof, pops right out. So that's the way it should come out. Just nice. And it's hard. I had somebody who just recently bought my book, and they were like, well, is this soap going to be hard enough for me to ship and sell it, you know, like to different states and ship it? And I was like, yeah, it's hard. It's good, hard soap. Now, you do want to let it cure for a few days after you cut it, because it will be soft, you know, it's not cured. And you can use it right away. You can use it right then, but you will go through the bar faster. So the longer it sits, the harder it gets. And I cut these up and put them in a cardboard box and, you know, close the cardboard box up and put it up high out of the way. And because the soap will lose its color if it's left in the light, it will also, the outer portion of it will also lose its scent. So I found that cardboard is the best to store these in because it breathes and everything. So yeah, I'm going to show you my cutter that I've made. This is it, and it's just a really crude cutter, and I'd like to have a nicer one that cuts with the string cutters and everything. I just have never bought myself one, and I should, but I like this. This is very utilitarian, kind of crude, and very artisan, rustic kind of look to it. But yeah, just cut it into bars. I've got marks on my dill. That's my soap. Smells amazing. Excellent soap. It's just awesome. I love it. I love lavender. Yeah, we'll go to the to the rose. Okay, now here I am with the rose. The rose is beautiful. I love how it came out. It's a little darker than I normally make it, but I love it. It looks really pretty. So just undo it all, and I'll show you what it looks like. We'll get to cutting. Okay, so that's my soap making video. I've got lots more, that I've made in the past, and I've got more I'm going to be making soon. And I think the more you can watch people make soap, the faster you'll pick it up and everything, and gain confidence to do it. And a lot of people are really worried about working with the lye, and it's not a problem. It's really easy. Kind of reminds me of like canning. A lot of people are scared to do canning. And I've been one of them. I've done some water bath canning, but I don't know about pressure canning. But yeah, it's really easy to make soap, and you can really be creative with it and find out what you like. And patchouli's great. There's so many essential oils. You can do so many different things, and it works great for the dogs. You can use bar soap on the cats. You can, even horses. It's excellent. If you'd like to purchase any of my soaps, you can find them in my Etsy store and also on my website, and I'll put those links in the description box below. And also all the supplies that I use and everything to make my soaps, I'll put in the description box, and I'll put my ebook in there too. And Mommy Bee Soaps, I'll put her in there too. Yeah, I hope you make some soap, and if you do, please let me know. I'd love to hear a comment here, or you can email me through my website, or on Etsy. Comment, message me on Etsy, or you can find me almost anywhere, and I'm real responsive. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.